We're going to be talking through Monday's MLB slate. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Certainly a better weekend than I did in golf. Not my ideal one, but we're ready for a big slate here on Monday. Obviously, no NBA because of the national championship game, but they are still playing all the evening baseball games. I do want to put out there, if you're a premium member, I posted my early build in the 2-gamer for the 4 or less games and the 3-game slates and stuff where they intersect with the main slate. We're not always going to have every single thing for those, but like shows and that's not necessarily everybody's projections. We do have SaberSim projections no matter what all the time, but Goldie usually has his up, Sheets usually has his up, but just in case, just wanted to throw that out for you on this little 2-gamer earlier today. But for the main slate is what we'll mostly be talking through. I did post my early build of the 2-gamer in the Discord. I'm probably just going to play one lineup in it because just trying to get as much activity in baseball as I can. Another thing I wanted to address was what we've seen so far in baseball because of the cold temperatures. It's tempting. I keep wanting to bet the overs on all the games, but at the same time, we're not seeing a lot of power because of the weather, but we are seeing the runners run as we expected. A lot of stolen bases so far in the year. So and also we have weather in one of these games if you're going to play the early slate. So if you're going to play it, I think that you just to be cautious, maybe overload the New York, Milwaukee side of the hitting because there seems to be some common thinking that the White Sox may not get all 9 in. Just throwing that out there. So but we can move on to the main one if you and go game by game.
Yeah, I didn't look at the early slate. Looks like some decent pitching there.
Some interesting ones. You've got a weird thing with DeScalfani. He's supposed to split times. I'm used to NBA. Manaea and he are supposed to both pitch. I can't figure out what the hell's going on yet. I do think that's probably, anyway, something to stay away from pitching-wise. All right, but getting into the main slate here, we've got a lot of interesting games, and as usual for this time of year, low totals. I still think that no matter what, I'm going to keep betting the Boston total over no matter what, just because they have no pitching and a lot of offense, and they're one of the great hitters' parks. There's not any weather that should keep us off of games today. As I have right now. Of course, things could change, but for right now, not really worried about any of the games playing for the main slate. So that was just sort of my first little what's happening tonight. Sheets, anything before we get into game by game?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know. I mean, I'm off to a pretty decent start in baseball. I've cashed in a couple.
Yeah, you had a nice one.
First of all, I cashed in a couple of the bigger buy-ins, and I also got like fourth in the lottery. Something which is I wasn't really sweating it, so I don't know if I was like in contention for everything, but I ended up with fourth, which was pretty big. So I'm kind of happy with the way things are starting. And again, for those of you who are not premium members yet, like I say, what are you waiting for? Get on in there. We have a whole bunch of different types of projections you can look at, between the SaberSim ones, Goldie's, industry aggregates, and mine, but remember, with baseball, it's much less about that and much more about being contrarian and knowing where leverage exists, where it doesn't, where what types of slates require you to 5-man stack versus which require you to 4-man stack. It's not as projection based, but nonetheless, we do have the projections up there, and we do have all kinds of Bobby's his picks and his cores and all this stuff. So. We're both we're off to a good start. Bobby's not off to a good start administratively with his ancillary issues, but he'll get those worked out. His takes are really good though right now.
Yeah. And as separate note, sad note, Sheets knew a lot better than I did, and the BBF who played in the home games with their very sad story. I've played with him a few times before, had a lot of the same friends or people in common that we knew. And always, from my experience, everybody liked the guy very, very much, and it's a very sad story there. So just shout out R.I.P. to Thayer Rasmus.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to go to that note, but since it was brought up, I couldn't have resisted. So we I guess with that we should probably jump into the games before anything else tragic comes up into this.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so Philly against the Yankees. So overall, this pitching slate seems pretty pedestrian. I have like 10 guys I can play. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody for me that's a total standout. So you kind of mess around a little bit. And the first thing I noticed, Cortez is like 30% owned or so. At least my first look. I don't need to do that. I don't know. But so for me, I'm probably going to avoid it and do something else. On the Philly side, pitching wise, Taiwan Walker? I mean, no thanks. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to do that either. For me, if anything, maybe I'll play the Yankees as a stack. But even that, I have them as very very much a secondary option. I think this whole game is going to be probably a pass for me.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm totally cool with Cortez. I think the upside is still there, and it's always, like Philly's, like, this is a good baseball team. I mean, it's not like you're picking on you don't want to pick on them in general. So yeah, we probably have some other things, but Cortez early on is actually projecting really well, and people can like him. It is 57 degrees there. I like if the Yankees, you just look at their lineup and they're sort of tempting to stack all the time. As I mentioned, Taiwan Walker went like his first 25 starts. I think he gave up like 1 home run, but then they started getting them later on. And he was giving up some power. So while I was against stacking him, I don't include the Yankees in that. And I think the Yankees as at least a mini stack certainly are viable. I've got both of those two things. So Cortez and definitely some interest in the Yankees. I expect, to see a little bit more running from the Yankees this year than they have in the past, but they haven't really shown that. I don't even know who it would be. And that's the only reason why maybe they're a little lower on my early stack season list for teams in general, just because they just aren't going to run as much as some of the other teams are. And it's a lot easier to steal bases than it is hit home runs this time of year, which is different than how it has been. Anyway. All right. Then we get into our Tampa Bay Rays sheets for the week.
Yeah, so we played them in Survivor this week. But I'll kind of defer this one to you because you're kind of the Drew Rasmussen whisperer. You kind of invented Drew Rasmussen last year a couple of times. It seems like you were on him the times that he smashed. So he's against Washington, and Washington's pretty poor. And whatever they're doing in that Tampa Bay system, I mean, Jeffrey Springs came out there and put up 1 million fantasy points in like 70 pitches or something like that. So.
Yep.
Which brings up an interesting point. I mean, I don't know what to expect out of Drew Rasmussen as far as pitches go, and if that's going to even be enough. So I don't have him projected all that great. I have like 10 pitchers. I'm probably going to play a couple of ownership plays. I guess we'll get to them. But for me, I'll listen to you as far as Rasmussen goes. And as far as stacks, I mean, first of all, I don't like really. This is Trevor Williams. I forget which Williams. Oh, this is the actual. When is seriously DraftKings? You make like $2 billion in revenue. Can you get the right baseball cap up? I mean, honestly. And as far as the hitting goes, I mean, I like those 3 guys. I like to play on Tampa in general. The middle of the order, the parodies. What's his name? Franco and Rosarena. But aside from that. Not too appealing for me.
Yeah, Tampa should be a fun team to stack here because for me, they first of all, Rosarena likes to run. He always likes to, his problem is he gets thrown out taking extra base all the time, so you don't always get the stolen bases from him. But both the Rosarena and Lau for Brandon Lau for the power or speed upside, and then Franco I think is a terrific play. And then I'm not like thrilled with the rest of their lineup as always. But I still think that they have to be up there for stacks. Not to the fact that they're going up against a weak pitcher, a pitcher I don't think extremely highly of. He's not that bad, but Washington does have a terrible bullpen, and it's just sort of like the rule. Like when teams are really bad, they'll let games get out of hand. So when you're going to 5-man stack, you kind of want that. And the interesting thing to me is, and maybe it's because it's a bigger slate, I just don't see a ton of ownership on Tampa, and I'm kind of surprised by that. I would have thought they would have been a more popular stack today. I think maybe because it's all going to game we're going to talk about in a minute, but I'm very high on Tampa. I don't know where they rank for me in stacks, but they are one of my priorities right now, specifically Lau, Rosarena, and Franco. Lau especially, if he plays, he's questionable, is just way too cheap for me. So I'm in on the Rays stack, and that's pretty much all I have from this game.
What about Rasmussen?
I don't think I'm going to go there today. I don't quite like. I don't know. I'm not again, short leash-ish. Price is fine. He's on. He's one of a bunch of guys to consider. I don't think I'm going to over. It is a good matchup, so maybe I should consider a little bit higher. But as of right now, I just have him a little bit little bit further down the line. I hate to say this. I feel like we're saying this right after we just talked about their arrests. Like, sorry, it feels like a weird timing thing. Anyway, let's move on to Boston and Pittsburgh.
So Boston is, they put up 400 runs. I mean, in every game, right? Boston, Boston, they've given up 100 and they've scored 100 in every game, pretty much. Yeah. So Fenway is the Fenway Park of this year. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So I think this is going to get I would imagine get a bunch of ownership on both sides, and I think that they're both pretty reasonable. You could take this for what it's worth. I actually wouldn't mind like a 0% owned what's his name, Crawford.
I'm in on that too.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in that a little bit. So it could be 7-0 at the end of the first inning for sure. But he's got a couple of good performances on there, and I just this is going to be one of those games that people attack, and this is a game that you can get leverage on. So I'm going to probably have some of it and probably lose, but that's just where I'm at. But look, both these teams do look like obviously strong plays in the against pitchers who look kind of weak on paper in a stadium that just gives up everything. So it's kind of hard to ignore both these teams, but just because of a lack of a real huge pitching option and a low ownership, I might play some Crawford.
Yeah, it's interesting because the early projections like Pittsburgh better than like the ownership is higher on Pittsburgh than it is on Boston. And I'm trying to understand why Boston wouldn't get ownership today, and I don't have a good explanation of why they wouldn't. I think the projections must just be off early in the day. But I like both these teams, and I especially like Boston. So yeah. Very confused by the ownership early on. And it's not just the Sabres. I'm looking at your even aggregate ownership. Yeah. I'm very confused by why these teams wouldn't be higher than they are. I guess we'll get into it, but later on. But this seems like a spot you'd really want to attack. And certainly if other people won't, I will. I can almost promise you, like the slate locked right now, you could probably expect in the higher buy-ins double the ownership on Boston. Yep. And probably that's being projected right now. So I will be one of those guys playing this game, especially if people don't. But my guess is by the end of the day, it'll come pretty popular.
Yep.
All right. What do you got for Toronto and KC? I really love the slight staggering times. It's something about it I just love it. And I love that when they actually play, that's when the game actually starts, rather than NBA where you have to wait 10 minutes and then your guy gets scratched after lock, costs you $10,000.
Just hypothetically, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Just hypothetical. All right. So Toronto, KC, what do you got here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, in a slate where there's not that many great pitching options. I mean, why not play Brady Singer? I don't know. He's put up great games before. Yes, the matchup kind of stinks, but I don't know. I mean, that's just the way I'm looking at this slate. I'm looking at just trying to get off the board as far as pitching goes, and I usually don't do that as far as pitchers, but I just don't see anybody that's great. I mean, well, who am I going to play? George Kirby with 40 pitches? I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about those guys later, I suppose. But I think Brady Singer is a perfectly reasonable tournament play. And then on the hitting, I'm not really getting to too much either side of this. I'm not going to get to Berrios, but again, you're the Berrios whisperer. You play Berrios and you fade Berrios. I mean, you usually at least have an opinion on Berrios one way or the other. So I'm going to listen to you on that one. Probably just going to avoid it though.
Yeah. So I, for what it's worth, it's like kind of warm there for right now, considering it's 72 degrees, which feels like 90 degrees right now because it's like most of these games don't have it. I think that it's going to be hard for me to play a righty or a lefty. I don't actually know why I said righty, but it's going to be very, very hard for me to play anybody in general against Toronto, especially on a big slate. So that's pretty much my reason for probably not playing him. I do think Berrios is in play here. I'm going to have to do a little bit of better job. Well, not a better job. I'm going to have to start getting the umpire data filtered in on the site.
Yes.
It's something that I haven't got down so far early in the season. And also one thing to consider, partly I don't like to do it for the first month because we know umpires have there are umpires now because they watch in the offseason of all the things that they did wrong, that overcorrect, that go from being extreme pitchers to extreme hitters and vice versa. So just something to keep in mind. I like to usually wait for a month of the season to go by so I can get some more updated, accurate umpire data, because you will see some contrarian, some stuff that's different when you look at their whole mountain of work versus the recent stuff. But Barrios versus this team, yeah, the K rate should be decent enough. It's not ideal. It's not a great matchup. It's not a terrible matchup. Nothing to I don't know. I think that everything in this game looks to me to be fine, which means that on a bigger slate, I probably just stay away from basically all of it. And if I had to side with bats in this game, I'd want lefties, and most of the guys you usually want are righties. So really not a whole lot for me in this game, unfortunately. And always nerve-wracking to say that about a Blue Jays game, because they get out of hand sometimes. All right, and I'm ready to move on to Atlanta and St. Louis.
Okay, so St. Louis, I mean, I'd much rather so St. Louis is really, really good against lefties, right? As I recall. So Charlie Morton, I guess he's in play at 9,600. I was expecting to see him a little higher owned. I mean, I don't see anybody playing him. I don't know exactly what's going on with that. So if that's actually going to be the case, I mean, we have to look at the updated ownerships later. But I'll tell you this: if I have a choice between Nelson Cortez at 9,700 and Charlie Morton 9,600, if it's really 30% owned to 10, I'm just going to play Morton. That's the way it's going to be for me. And as far as the hitting goes, yeah, I mean, you just probably play Atlanta pretty much every day that Acuna's in the lineup, I suppose. He's just going to, every time he gets on base, he's going to be on second. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. So I guess they're in play. I don't have them rated near the top though for some reason. So maybe this Woodford guy is good. I don't know, but I would think that I'd want to play Atlanta. But right now, as far as my projections go, I'm not exactly getting to them, which is a little bit interesting to me. So what do you got here? You like Morton? You like Atlanta? Am I missing something?
So I'm trying to do it a little digging, I was trying to do it actually before. I didn't quite get to much of it this morning because I wanted to understand what I was dealing with Woodford more, and whether or not this would be a full start or just sort of maybe a bullpen-ish game.
Oh, okay.
That's just sort of thinking out loud here. The strikeouts have not been anything to write home about, but we have a very small sample size of him in the major leagues, and so I'm gonna have to dig through a little bit of. I mean, he was drafted in 2020. He's played some. I just need to get his minor league numbers, and I haven't gotten all of this stuff together yet. So I can't figure out, and maybe I'm totally just missing things today. And all the teams that I thought are like last night when I looked through this slate that I thought was going to be just mega chalk and 5+ run totals really hasn't been the case so far. I don't understand why Atlanta doesn't have a giant run total.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't understand why Atlanta was 40% owned on opening day in a 13-game slate, which is just stupid, obviously, in general. But come on, how are we not supposed to like Atlanta here? And I know that St. Louis is a good bullpen, and it's a park downgrade for Atlanta for sure. All of these things are true. They've got monsters, and they love to run. I have no idea what else we want for in stacks. So, of course, Atlanta is right there with Boston and Tampa for me. And I'm just confused. And it's the thing about the Woodford is I know a little bit about him, and I know that some people are high on him. I just don't know, what is it? My guess is that they don't use him for they're high on him, but I've always thought he was going to be an in-between sort of, your sort of last starter / long bullpen guy. So, and I agree with what you said about Morton. I don't see that there should be a big difference unless I hear anything about pitch counts between Morton and Cortez. I also think that, it's not a fun matchup to take a pitcher against St. Louis. That sucks, but
yeah.
But I guess that's the highlight for me is that, if you can play the Braves, and maybe partly why it's not they're crazy expensive. I don't know. I'm in on the Braves for what it's worth. 1 through 5 especially, but include Ozuna as a cheap 6th guy on DraftKings. And Eric's asking us to touch on FanDuel. We can touch on FanDuel at the end, but we do our game by game through on DraftKings. We can talk about FanDuel, but it's not going to be game by game, and then it just would take too long to go through all of FanDuel. We can talk about a few things that stand out and that'll mostly be more on the live show, I think. But we always will answer any direct questions. All right, so yeah, Atlanta and Morton in play, and I'm gonna have to rank these guys by the end because it looks like decent hitting weather. By the way, 72 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing out. I can certainly get on board out to left, by the way, for what it's worth. All right, next one up, we've got Baltimore, Texas. Sheet, what do you like here?
Yeah, unfortunately, I might have a share of Bradish. Again, I just don't know what else to do here. He has every once in a while he'll put up an amazing game, and most of the time he puts up bad ones. And he's 5,600. I don't know, just something to do. That's the best I can describe it. John Gray, I don't really like. He's not projecting so great for me, and he's 9,200, and that's pretty much all I got. As far as the hitting goes, nothing. I don't know. I got nothing for you this game.
Yeah, I am. So I am always like I'm gonna take the Corey Seager 92, the most affected player from the shift, Corey Seager. I'm gonna be just way overweight on him as an individual play this year every time, unless he's crazy high on, which he won't be today. I don't mind your Bradish idea, by the way. I don't feel like we're getting to pitchers, and yeah, somebody's gonna have an outlier game tonight. But there's no difference between these guys. I don't want to play John Gray. I honestly don't really want to pick on Baltimore, to be honest with you. This is a really strong lineup. And yeah, there's some strikeouts in there. You could have a ceiling game. But these guys this is a good lineup. They're expensive too. I don't think I want to play them necessarily in Texas, but I'm not crossing that off against John Gray. Yeah, I mean, basically Rushman as a one-off is always going to stand out, and Corey Seager is my as always, is going to be one of my favorite plays on the slates. I guess a little Bradish. That's pretty much all I have here. Not my again. I don't love taking players in Texas, but if you're going to do it, you may as well do it earlier in the year because the hitting. The roof being closed later, unless the roof is open, the roof being closed later in the year, it tends to, be a pretty good pitcher's park. Early in the year, we don't have that many good hitters parks. So I'm going to jump on this one and I'm going to jump on it in general, but I just don't feel amazing about any of it today. No problem with Texas Stack, just not a priority, but Seager is a priority to get in for me. He's my favorite shortstop. So, all right, we can move on to Detroit and Houston. Is that what you got?
Yeah. All right. So Hunter Brown. So he's going to be. I think at the end of the day, people are going to just. I was about to say people are just going to play him because he's home. Right. He's home against Detroit. I just get a little nervous just because he hasn't thrown any innings. I don't know. So look, he's going to project probably really well. He's actually, for what this is worth, he's projecting as one of the top point per dollar plays for me. But at 30%, maybe pitching 4 innings, maybe 5. I don't know. Going to be really popular in all this. I'm not sure what to do with it. Matt Boyd, I get it. He has a 21 strikeouts to 3 in the minors. And last season, I think he had a shoulder or something like that. Somebody else can play this guy in freaking Houston except for me. I'm just not doing it. So, and on the other hand, I played Matt Boyd enough times to know that he could strike out dudes and he can give up 11 home runs. Okay, yep. So Houston for me is something I want to do. I don't know if it's going to be. This is the team that I'm expecting to be popular along with Boston and Pittsburgh. But we'll see exactly what ends up happening. But so Houston, I guess Hunter Brown, but I can't play them both because now we're in Chalk City. So
I don't know if you're going to be as because there's so many good so many bad starting pitchers today or so many questionable ones. Houston's. I mean, even on your projections, the early look is not loving them, and also they're harder to get in because they have 4 guys who are 5K that you want to play. That's hard to. It makes the rest of your building just a little bit more challenging, even though we don't need to spend crazy up for pitching necessarily. But
that's true.
I think that you might get a little like I would bet you on FanDuel they're a lot more popular. All of these Houston, Atlanta guys are always going to be just because they're just going to be easier to get in over there.
I mean, I guess also in fairness, the guys Alvarez is not as great against the lefties. Tucker's definitely not as great against the lefties. You want to play Bregman and Pena, I suppose. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't even play him. I don't know. Maybe one off these guys. I mean, I've just played Boyd too many times when he's given up 5 home runs. That's like
no, I'm with you. I've got Houston as one of my top stacks. I don't know where they're going to end up. We'll talk about it at the very end, but they are right up there, and I do think this could be an explosion type of spot for them. Little thing that's always concerning is just that they have other guys on the bench that they can play. This kid Jokes, who has been hitting 30 home runs in the minor leagues, which is like hitting 40 in the majors. He's 2K, and no one's going to feel the need to play him in the outfield that's loaded. So that's one way you can get different with your Houston stacks.
Which guy?
Corey Jokes, assuming that he's in the lineup.
This guy, okay.
But also beware, there's some pinch hit risk, and you could end up with Jake Myers in there at the outfielder at the end of the game. So just keep that in mind. And I do like the idea in general of I always am going to side with stacking against Detroit, the Nationals, and the A's, just because they don't like the depth of their bullpen and using the quality guys in their bullpen. They're just not gonna do in games where they're down by 6 runs. So I want to, if you want to bet a 5-man stack, it's always going to be against those teams that I prefer. All right, which one do you have next, Arizona or the A's?
I'm
sorry.
I did want to make one comment. So on day one, again, take this for what it's worth. On day one, where Atlanta was like 100% owned against Patrick Corbin, right? One thing that the announcers were talking about. Now, listen, I do respect the local announcers that know more about the teams than whatever. Apparently, for whatever Washington's deficiencies are, apparently their bullpen has improved this year. So I wouldn't be so quick in general to just go after Washington. And they actually did hold Atlanta after they said that through the rest of the game. So just something to keep in mind.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with the announcer's assessment.
Maybe not.
I think they have a deeper run of rotations. They've been horrible, but I hear what you're saying. And I'm like you. I do think that I do like some of the local announcers knowing stuff, but honestly, they're bad in NBA. They're really bad in baseball sometimes. Doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about. It just means that they just I don't. It's hard to listen to them to call a game. Anyway, Cleveland and Oakland.
Plesac looks good. Looks decent enough. 7,900 against a weak team. He's being owned decent amount. How do you separate him from the others? I'm not sure, but looks like a totally reasonable play. Kaprelian, not really for me, but just enough to keep me off of Cleveland, I guess. So for me, it's probably some Plesac, and that's probably it.
Yeah, it's just we're going to pick on the A's this year. It's no question about it. I'm just double checking the weather here. The winds don't matter as much in Oakland, but they still mattered enough when they're blowing 20 miles an hour. It's going to be 52 degrees. That's not ideal, but just throwing that out there as a guy who's always looking to try and play Jose Ramirez. So I think Plesac is fine. Like this pitching on the slate is really uninspiring, to the point where I think we should probably gamble with like the 6,100 guys or 6,500 guys or whatever the names we've come up with, the Crawfords and all that stuff. It's because I don't think there's a huge gap between these guys. I mean, yeah, sure, you could get lit up, but more likely you get through 4 innings and you end up with 12, 14 points and you're probably totally fine. And then you differentiate your build by doing so. So I'm open to the what's it called, Plesac. I don't feel great about it. It's not an ideal guy to play on an 11-game slate. And I think you could make an argument for some of the Cleveland bats, specifically Jose Ramirez. Surprised he hasn't run more early in the season, but I like this Cleveland team quite a bit. I think they've got some real power and a little bit of speed. So between like Ramirez, Kwan, Rosario, Jimenez, Naylor, Bell, that's a pretty strong lineup. Then you got Zunino, the power Zunino at the bottom. It's kind of a fun team to stack. It's just not I don't really want to stack in Oakland if I don't have to, but. So they're probably on the outside looking in, and I just can't get to anything on the Oakland side. If I had to pick one player, it would be Laureano, but we can move on.
All right, so Seattle, the Angels, here's another one. Like this Reed Detmers. He had an immaculate inning, I think, last year. Did he have a no hitter too, or a perfect game or something? Like every once in a while, you know what I mean? He'll put something up, and that's good. I don't know. That's good enough for me. And I'm looking here. It says his average velocity on his slider was 90 compared to 85 last year for a younger guy. I mean, listen, I'd much rather play righties against Seattle if you want to know the truth. But I guess on a slate like this, I mean, he's going to make it in the pool. And then Kirby, like I kind of alluded to earlier, I mean, he doesn't pitch that many pitches, and he hasn't pitched that many pitches in the preseason. So I'm not. I have to see something before I play him. I think that Seattle is actually a team I might want to play against Detmers, maybe also. So maybe both sides of this, from Detmers as kind of like one of the many fishy pitchers I might try, with maybe some Seattle on the other side too. That's where I'm missing.
Yeah, I'm totally open to Seattle, but it didn't rate as a priority for me. But I think that they're totally fine. I mean, we're going to be talking about them a lot this year. This is a very strong lineup that they have. Well, very strong in pieces lineup, but I think they still need a couple of other spots. But they're solid. I am going to take the Vegas run lines, and I am going to take what I've seen from George Kirby, and I am going to play George Kirby. Almost no doubt about it. I have him as the number one pitcher on the slate. I have to find out. Now, the problem is the number one pitcher this time of year doesn't necessarily mean that much, right? But I do think he's the best pitcher on the slate. He's the most talented, the best going forward, I guess is the right way to say it. Now, you'd think that the Angels, like that, it's a scary looking lineup. It's a scary idea, but really it's more scary an idea than it is in actual practice. If you get around Ohtani and Trout and they only get, one hit between them and a walk, which is a pretty standard, a good night for most hitters. You've got Rendon questionable tonight, and then you've got Taylor Ward, who's a decent hitter, but also has strikeouts. And then you go down the list, and it's like none of these guys, you've got Jake Lamb batting sixth. I mean, what are they doing? Like the Angels, maybe, and everybody's like, oh, the Angels will break out this year. They say that every year. I just don't understand what the Angels are doing. But I do like Kirby a lot for what it's worth, and I have Seattle as like a secondary stack.
Okay.
But I need to find out about the pitching because the only thing that's why I think by the end of the slate, I might end up being like with you, Sheets, the Morton guy, because at least all you want is opportunity. At least with Morton, you know he's got a leash if he's going well. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So Arizona, San Diego. I guess I'll go real quickly on this one. I don't know what to do here. I'm going to take a quick look at the weather because I think that's what drove me off when I did a first look. Sorry, let me grab this real quick. Yeah, so it's the wind blowing in at 21 miles an hour from left field is the reason why I can't get on this game. I would like to pick on both of these pitchers, and I would especially like to pick on the Arizona bullpen, which was one of the worst in the major leagues last year. They're a better team than they were, so they're not going to be quite as gettable. And then you've got the huge upside lineup of the Padres, which is going to be hard to hit when you're playing in San Diego and the winds are blowing in. It's 50 degrees outside, and your winds are blowing 20 miles an hour from left. So my rule for this game would be only the lefties. Cronenworth, Grisham if he's leading off. Ketel Marte, who will bat lefty against the righties. Oh no, he's going to bat righty because it's Weathers. Never mind. Corbin Carroll maybe, but I think this is because of the weather. I'm probably not going to play any of this game, and I don't like the pitchers enough to really want to play them. I think Ryan Weathers at low ownership is viable, but I don't think I'm going to do it probably.
Yeah, I don't mind the Arizona cheapos. I don't know about the weather really, but got Kyle Lewis as basically free. Not Corey Carroll, whatever his name is, Carroll. Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, even Evan Longoria. I have those rated as good, quote unquote values as far as value stats, as I have for since I've known you. Arizona all the time. But I just there have to be better hitting spots than them, right? So probably end up not going to do it. And with the weather, with the weather blowing in, that kind of seals it for me. I'm probably not going to have much of this game at all.
Yeah, and the 50 degrees. It's like the San Diego. It's so weird that San Diego is the coldest place on the slate. What the hell? And they always brag that they have the best year-round weather. I disagree. All right. we can move on to. We only got what the last one is.
Yeah, well, if you didn't like any of that, and if you didn't, I have no problem with just doing nothing and then playing Michael Grove and the Dodgers. Literally no problem at all. Home against Colorado is good news for pitchers. Supposedly, this Michael Grove is good. He's projecting pretty well. I don't know what he's going to pitch, 4 or 5 innings, whatever that's going to be. And I can have the Dodgers with that dude you made me play. The guy I played day one and now I think every day. The Outman, right? You play him at 2,800. I could play Peralta at 3,500. And then I could afford maybe I could play Freeman even at 5,700. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. You got to ask Alexa what the weather's going to be over there, but I don't know if it matters all too much. I'm gonna play. I think I'm gonna do this. Dodgers and you got to tell me about this Hunter Brown. Is he like a better play than, for example, Michael Grove? Is he like a better play than? Well, I would say better play than Hunter Brown, but he's 1,800 cheaper. Why don't I want to do this? Why don't I want to play Michael Grove? That's my question.
I'm okay with Michael Grove completely, especially I'm not okay with the hitting in this game. So this is extreme. For LA, I don't remember ever seeing this. It's 53 degrees, which I've seen that before, but I've never seen the winds blowing in from left at 30 miles an hour.
Oh man, really?
So if you're going to play hitters, I think you got to just play the lefties if you're going to play. It's too hard. And it's annoying when Mookie pokes one over the right field fence twice or something like that. But you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know how you're supposed to try and on a slate like this to take guys hitting into 30-mile-an-hour winds. That's like a ridiculous amount of wind. So I am not playing the Dodgers stack as of right now. Now, should things change later in the day and the heat maybe holds off some of the wind, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm hoping for, I guess. Then maybe I consider them, but it's really hard for me at this point to try to have too much interest in them just because I think that you're asking for a lot. So I have my priority stacks, to go through it just real quick for the slate. I have the Rays, Boston, Atlanta, and Houston as my 4 favorites. I'm going to have to try and figure out how I want to rank those guys, but those are my 4 favorites for sure. Also open to Cleveland and Seattle at lower ownership. And then for my pitchers, the only one that I feel like I immediately want to play is Kirby. And even that doesn't feel like some sort of a lock by any kind. So this might be a day where you could do a little bit of what I did on the smaller slate the other day. I just literally played just the 2 cheapest guys. I don't even care. Give me 4 innings. Today it's a big enough slate where somebody probably has a standout performance. So I think maybe Morton is the best guy to pair. And the weird part is Morton is not getting ownership. It is a tough matchup, but like Morton Cortez with Kirby, something like that is the chalk. Or not chalk, but something.
I can't do those combos. I don't think.
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I'd rather just go cheaper.
Yeah, and then the cheaper the Grove Crawford or the Grove
Edgars, Plesac. I don't know, guys like that.
Yeah, maybe. I think Grove and Brown and Crawford and Kirby are the guys. I just think that even if we're worried about him throwing pitches, I still think this is too cheap for George Kirby, and I think that he's actually the best pitcher on the slate. So I just have to play guys when I feel it.
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean,
yeah. All right, so it should be fun. We'll be live. We'll do the live an hour before lock as usual.
Yeah.
And shouldn't be as stressful, knock on wood. It is the NBA, so it should be kind of fun tonight.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, good luck, everybody. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboard.